Welcome back. You've got your master key and you've got your soul compass, and now I'm going to give you your treasure chest. This is lesson 3 of the masterclass series. Unlock your treasure chest. So this is about your emotions, as I promised in the second teaching. Your emotional body is another body. You have a spiritual body and you have a physical body, and you also have an emotional body, and they're full of colours. And basically this emotional body is God's gift to you. So all of your emotions, all of the colours, all of the little ways that you're different from someone else inside of your emotionality is the way that God created you, and that is your gift. So in this lesson, what I'm going to teach you is how to use those gifts to not only heal your soul of past hurts and traumas, but also to awaken your soul into a bigger version of yourself, a bigger experience of yourself as a soul being. So in life, we have what's called causal emotion and reactive emotion. So let me just give you a couple of scenarios. So here you are in a shopping centre, if you're a mum, and your little girl or little boy is at the checkout and they're completely throwing a tantrum and it's really triggering you, and you're going into, oh my God, damage control, I feel so embarrassed, my child is feral. So if you just imagine that feeling, and everything in your being wants to shut the child down. Imagine the tension, that emotional tension. That is a reactive emotion. Imagine being at work and you're in an environment and you've got some really good ideas coming through and you're really excited to present this, and someone shuts you down. Boom. Yeah, well, we don't really want to hear about that right now. Disregard. Dismiss, disregard. Imagine the feeling that comes up. Usually rage, sometimes grief. That is a reactive emotion. Boom, you come into the traffic lights and you're driving and you go to take off and someone zooms out in front of you and cuts you off, pulls in front, and you're shocked and you're angry and you scream out the window, you know, expletives. That's a reactive emotion. They're triggers, what I like to call triggers. And basically what it is, it's just energy. At the end of the day, it's energy inside of your being, inside of your soul, inside of your colour wheel that's been activated. What we're going to explore and play with is the gift of that activation and the gifts of those energies. What a lot of people do is go into judgment and try to just move on, shut it down, ignore it. You know, those feelings are not worthy of my attention. That's one way that people choose not to be with their triggers, or rise above. Meanwhile, light a cigarette and try to suppress the feeling with cigarette or coffee. That's one way. Or the other way is to be with them. So to let yourself have the energy that's moving through your body. At the supermarket, while your child's going feral, you let yourself go into the energy and you don't try to shut your child down. Instead, you witness what's going on and you feel it in your own body and take responsibility for what it is that you're feeling. It's 2 ways of dealing with triggers. So we're kind of at a crossroad right now because you know, if you think back to the 50s and in that time and space, you know, it wasn't acceptable. It wasn't okay to go into how you felt about a situation, especially if you're a housewife at home and you were governed by, your husband's income, and your job was to keep a tidy home and to keep a rein on your children and to keep it together, to look good. We weren't really allowed to have a feeling response back then, and to a large degree that is the same as today. We are not encouraged in society to truly be with our emotions and also to be vulnerable inside of our emotions. So we're kind of at a crossroads right now, because we have to do something about this, because it's no longer okay for a lot of people to to be okay with the expression, to be okay with the non-expression, I should say. And so we're going through a phase right now of having permission. We're getting permission now I should say we're giving ourselves permission to be honest and true about what's arising and what's being felt, because it's there. It is the elephant in the room. So let's talk about it. So basically, what will happen is, when you can just be with your emotions, your dramas, your external dramas and chaos will start to dial back. Your life will become more simpler and more flowing and more joyous in each day. It'll also change the feeling space around you. And what I mean by that is, think of a Labrador, and she's a mummy Labrador, and she's got 8 puppies, and they're all playing and jumping up and down, and as they get, and she's very devoted and she's very loving and she feeds them all and she's totally there. But as they get older, they're getting a little bit rambunctious, and they're starting to chew on her ear, and they're starting to chew on each other, and they're starting to jump up and down and create a bit of flurry. And then when they're ready to handle that emotional intensity, that the mother dog says, "Urgh!" And the little puppy's like, "Oh," and they know that they're in trouble. What did she do? She didn't berate them. She didn't tell them off. She didn't threaten to take away their sweets. She changed the feeling space around her and the pups. And what she did was, she came into her own anger. And anger speaks. And what she said was, "That's enough. There's my boundary. You guys need to tone down." And that's all I mean by being with your emotions. It is saying, yes, one, I admit that I have an emotion coming up, which is anger, and now I'm going to be with that in the form of a growl. So that's just an example of how animals do it in nature. And what happens is, when you become au fait with being with your emotions, you can actually clear residual. So you can clear the past by being, so let's just say something happened back here, 30 years ago. If you can be with that same emotion now in a true way, you can clear what happened here. So it transcends time and space. And that makes me really excited. So we have to get right. We have to get right with our emotions. We have to get into a right relationship with them, and really, really start to honor them and love them as a pathway to our own soul's progression, not only in this dimension, in this realm, but in the next. Because without becoming right with your emotions, you will continue to become a victim to them, and they will continue to create the dharma of your life, instead of you creating the destiny of your life. As we spoke about before, we've got present reactive emotions, and then we've got past causal emotions. But remember, anything that happened in the past can pop up over here. So even though we call it causal emotion, we've got access to that here, or I should say here right now. So there's reactive emotions and causal emotions. There's a big difference. In fact, there's a world of difference, and I'm actually going to do a whole teaching just on the difference, and starting to hone in on what's a reactive emotion and what's a causal emotion, because once you can tap into the causal, you're cooking with gas. So first up, your reaction is okay. The reactivity in you is okay. Don't judge it, because as soon as you judge it, you're going to shut it down. And what we want is we want you to actually ride on the reactivity so that you can tap into your causal emotions. But step one is to not judge it. Not judge your triggers. Don't judge them. They're there for you to as a signpost to say, hey, you got something going on here that is now up for review. The second step is to be aware that you've been triggered. Say, exactly, hey, here we go, review time, and basically give thanks. Back in lesson number 1, giving thanks for what hurts. It's the crack in your eggshell, and if you can imagine an egg with a hairline crack in it, and it starts to come apart, your trigger is the egg's coming apart, and the light is shining out of that egg. So we don't want to stop that. We don't want to move away from that or sidestep it or divert it. We want that light to come out. So say yes to your trigger. So what are your reactions? Well, basically I like to simplify everything because it helps you just get clear when confusion reigns. If you break down, I like to break down emotions into 5 distinct categories. And we'll start at the bottom. The bottom one is shame. And why it's at the bottom and why I've chosen grey for the colour is that shame on a vibrationary level, if you think of energy, all energy is vibration, say on a scale of 1 to 1,000. Shame is the emotion that vibrates the lowest. Now, I can't remember exactly what it is, but let's just say, for example, and this won't be exact, but let's just say shame was vibrating at 200. So associated with shame are feelings like unworthiness, invisibility, guilt, and at its lowest point, suicidal. So basically, I don't want to be here anymore. My vibration is so low. I'm quite happy just to drop through to the other side because I'm done with this existence. So there's shame, and you can just think of that as a ball in itself, and it's a really low vibration. In fact, the only thing that vibrates lower than shame is death itself, death of the physical body. So that's how difficult it is to feel shame. It's a really low vibration, and most people don't want to go there because they fear that they will die, and it's a valid fear. But my experience of processing shame was that I didn't die. So. And then above that is sadness. And within the sadness category, you've got just being unhappy and grief, heartbreak and devastation, devastation. It's often an opportunity for huge change. But that's the sadness ball. And then fear, which vibrates, or I should say sadness vibrates faster than shame. So let's just say we're up around 300 now for sadness. And then we go to fear, which is sitting higher again. So it's vibrating higher. It's also encompassing of caution, worry, anxiety. Anxiety is simply fear, which is really good to know that a lot of people in society today are anxious. That's fear. In fact, a lot of people drink coffee to meet their fear. I did a little bit of a muscle testing, and fear resonates at the same vibration as coffee. So what a lot of people do in order to meet their fear is they'll have a coffee, and it meets it. It's being met in that moment. It's being met, and when that energy or emotion is being met, you can get on with your day. You can refocus. Afraid, terrified. Being in terror is another version of fear. But again, it's all in the fear ball. Anger above, vibrating faster than fear. Irritation, frustration, anger, rage. I love saying to my mum, you seem, I said, are you angry, Mum? No, I'm frustrated. Well, that's anger. No, I'm not. I'm frustrated. We have an argument about whether she's angry or frustrated. It's the same. It's all anger. It's just that we don't like to admit. It's really hard to admit that we're angry. People don't like to admit they're angry because there's judgment on the word anger, and that's just silly. So the final ball of emotion is love. love, my favorite one, acceptance, faith, trust, gratitude, happy, joyous, connection, excitement, activation, and ecstasy even. And they're all in the love ball. So just think of your emotions now as 5 little balls. And it is these 5 balls, by the way, that is your light body. And through the expression, the healthy expression and feeling of these 5 centers, your light body develops around you. So in other words, the more you can get in touch with those feeling states, the more your aura grows, and the more light then you can conduct through your physical body. So this is actually a physical transformation. So by consciously processing our causal emotions, our soul releases and our suitcase becomes lighter. And that is the truth. When we get in touch with causal issues from the past, our soul is lightened and we become enlightened. Here's some emotional inversion. So what is an emotional inversion? So emotional inversion is the emotion in the shadow. So it's the emotion that doesn't want to be seen, it doesn't want to be felt, doesn't want to be acknowledged, and it's an ego thing. So this is like a little thing that the ego does. It likes to invert your emotions and kind of like, I'm not having that experience. And this is what we do when we don't want to. We don't want to feel the emotion. We don't want to deal with that issue. We don't want to unpack that. So we'll shelve it and we'll put that away, and we'll go into an emotional inversion. And some examples of inversions are feeling overwhelmed, feeling confused, feeling depression, having addictions, sex addictions or shopping addictions, or smoking, retail therapy, being judgmental, being the judger of those in your realm and those around you, you've had an experience with. And if you judge them, that's an emotional inversion. That's actually you avoiding something that you don't want to feel, because human soul by nature doesn't judge, it only connects. And what judgment will do is it will disconnect you from the person that you're judging. So try loving the person that you're judging, or try judging the person that you're loving. Can't do both. You choose. Withdrawal is also another form of emotionally inverting. So if you're not being with your emotions and you're shelving it, they can also show up in other ways. And so there's a few little signposts here to be able to sort of show you that you're inverting. So anger. If you're inverting your anger, it's going to show up in your liver first, and it'll develop things like skin irritations, a red face, skin blemishes, anything to do with skin, dermatitis, rosacea. That is your liver saying I'm not happy, because that's where anger is held and stored, and then the physicalization of that will be skin irritations. Another physicalization of anger is gout. The mental activity of anger is judgment, and the behavior of anger is violence, which is on self or on others. So some people will take that anger and they will persecute self and get really angry with self, or they will project that out and go into judgment and put that out onto someone else. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's violence on self, and or others. Usually when someone goes into withdrawal, it's because they don't want to be violent. So when a man withdraws from a situation, violence is not acceptable in today's society. So rather than become violent and lose the plot completely, they can withdraw. Fear, denied or inverted, it shows up in the kidneys. And when fear's being held in the kidneys, and this has been my soul's journey, my particular weak spot, if you like, has always been fear. And I've suffered from stress, and adrenal exhaustion is the kind of the physical manifestation of that. And so what's my mind doing when I'm feeling stressed and exhausted? My kidneys are depleted. I've got fear, but I'm not really wanting to be with my fear. I'm not wanting to acknowledge my fear. I'm just kind of like, getting on with my day, being an empowered woman, but I'm actually shelving all of this fear. So every now and again, I go into thoughts of non-coping. I can't cope. This is, my life's too much. I'm a victim. I'm a victim to my life. And then my thought process is, I need help. I need support. I can't cope. I'm a victim. So fear comes closely to the victim mentality. And what will I do then if I'm feeling like a victim? I withdraw. I hide. I will go under my doona and I will lie low in order to recuperate myself so that I can get out there in the world and function again. And I will. And I'll rise from the ashes and I'll get out and I'll function again. But there'll always be that fear monster chasing me. And then I'll get to the point after a few months, it's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And so the journey here is to stop shelving and to become really honest with my fear and to own it and claim it and say, you know what, this is my particular schism of my soul's journey, to become friends with my fear. And so sadness, denied or inverted, lives in the lymphatic system, and it comes up with things like it's a stagnation energy. We talked about the different ways of blocking before, and stagnation was one of them. And you can become very depressed. So when your sadness is inverted, depression rises. And there's an old saying that depression is just the suppression of grief. That's all it is. And so if you were willing to get in touch with your grief, if you're feeling depressed and you just let yourself have it and have your grief, you would wake up one day and your depression would be gone. And so if you've got a stagnant lymphatic system, you'll develop conditions like fluid retention and anything to do with lymph. That often we can have a cancer that grows in our lymph nodes. We need activation. We need turning that up. We need to come from sadness up into anger. And we need to shift that vibration up. And so what if you can do physicalization of bouncing on a trampoline, or because we need to activate that sadness and get it moving, and so that it comes up and out. The behavior around sadness is avoiding, staying away. Don't see me, I'm sad. And there's some addictions with sadness as well. I think chocolate might be one of them. And eating, sad eating. And also really important, overriding. There's you'll know an overrider. Have you ever met people who are just like, hi? You can tell it's being really pushed. Hi! They're really pushing out their happiness. You're going to make sure that they're happy. It's kind of like, whoa, I don't know about that person, because they're pushing their happiness out. And you can feel it. You can feel it as a lack of authenticity. You can feel it as a push. So it's overriding. And straight away, you go, that person's overriding something. Something. May not always be sadness. And then finally, shame, the ball at the bottom, the little grey ball. It's physicalized in the blood. And things like viruses, anything. Virus, the herpes virus, the chronic fatigue virus, which is otherwise known as the Epstein-Barr virus. They're in the same family, by the way. So if you have herpes, you've probably got the Epstein-Barr. It's all the same family. And Anthony Williams talks a lot about healing viruses with the power of food. So we've got shame, blood, and then viral activity. Flus, low immune system, all of that's a shame-based manifestation. And the thought patterns there is, worthiness. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not valid. I'm not good enough. I'm just not worthy of this experience of life. And so what we do with our behavior with that is we seek validation. And we look for it sometimes in relationships with others. And, I know in my life I've often done that through my attractions to the masculine of the species, seeking validation to somehow bring balance to me and make me whole in some aspect. I've done that in the past. or the other polarity is that we'll avoid that shame through addictive behavior. We can move towards, for example, sexual encounters, and have have sexual encounters that are not founded in love, that are more motivated by trying to bring something to meet that energy of shame. We'll try to meet it with something. Remember, we talked about the coffee being met with fear. Well, often what we'll do is we'll try and meet that shame with another vibration. So men who go to brothels and have sex like that, what they're actually doing is they're just getting their shame met for a period of time, and it feels good. The problem with that is it's also addictive. So at the end of the day, we're both seeking validation. The feminine will seek validation through emotional relationships with men, and the man will seek validation through sexual connections with women. So we're doing the same pattern. We're just doing it in slightly different versions, but it's the same pattern. We're just trying to get met. We're just trying to get love. And then, of course, I spoke about in the extreme case of shame, it's suicide, and it is alarming to think of the rate of suicide now on the planet, more so for males, and so that's a real problem there. And we need to bring a lot of attention and love to that particular cause, because unfortunately suicide rates are rising. So let's get started. So you're going to have some worksheets at the end of your presentation, so download them, and you've got actually I'll just go back to that one. You've got practice 1. Yeah, okay. So we've got some interactive worksheets there, and it'll guide you through your treasure chest of emotions, and actually help you form a relationship with each one of those balls. And what you can do now to make this, really ground this in, you've got your worksheets, but you've got also the practice of setting up your emotional altar. This is a really lovely thing to do. If you don't have an altar in your house, or a place that you just give worship to, find a little space. It doesn't have to be very big. It can be on that big on a tray if that's all you've got. If you live in a bus, you can have a little tray. But basically, I want you to choose 5 things that represent each one of your balls in your treasure chest. Okay, and so that's pretty much what we do is we go through and explore our triggers. Here we go, back on track now. You're on. Please share your journey and come onto the Facebook site. Let us know how your triggers are going, and what causal emotions are being activated. And I really, really love hearing about your journey. I love all of this work. So do share. And that completes lesson 3 of your journey with the masterclass. Big love.